The last sect, the Ramana sect, formed in 1835 due to a dispute about what day the ceremony known as Vas begins. A monk named Atadasi claimed to have superior knowledge than the monks of the other two sects about astrology, and believed that he was right about what day the ceremony should take place. There were other points of contingency with the other sects that caused the Ramana sect to diverge from them. These included the material possessions that the other two sects seemed to enjoy and the worshipping of lower deities. The Ramana sect did not believe in either one of these. Today, the Ramana sect is small but has a respectable amount of recognition and influence. All of these different Nikayas have their own individual constitution, complete with a head and advisory council, which serves as the authority that makes administrative appointments. All followers of Buddhism worship specific objects. The relics of the Buddha's body that were picked up after his cremation, the worship of the Bodhi tree, under which he attained enlightenment, and images that had been created of him. In regards to relic worship, the Buddha told his foremost companion disciple, Ananda, that his relics should be placed in dagabas, also known as thupas, stupas, or sitayas. Dagabas are memorial monuments that enshrine the relics of the Buddha, his disciples, or other worthy individuals. This is the way the Buddha advised his followers to take care of his relics. There are many different ways that dagabas have been constructed. In Sri Lanka, the most common forms shaped by Ceylon architects have been the bell-shaped, the ghantakara, lotus-shaped, or padmakara, and the bubble-shaped babulakara. In Sri Lanka, beautiful stupas that are of magnificent size have been built under the direction of Sinhalese kings. For instance, the Abhyagiri Dagaba, built by King Vatagamini Abhaya in the 1st century BC, was originally 327 feet wide and 405 feet high. Before the construction of this stupa, there were two other more notable ones. One was the Thuparayama, built by the king Devanampiyatissa in the 3rd century BC, and the other one was Ruwanwelaseya by King Ditugemunu in the 2nd century BC. In all Buddhist countries, there are many other small dagabas found in the monastery and spread out elsewhere. It is of great importance that when Buddhism was introduced to Sri Lanka in the 3rd century BC, which was then called Ceylon, it was bestowed upon with many of the Buddha's corporeal relics, including the collarbone, left eye tooth, hair relic, and alms bowl. Additionally, it was given the relics of some of the Buddha's disciples. As it is commonly known to those who study Buddhism, the Buddha attained enlightenment under a Bodhi tree in India. It is thought that a branch of the very same tree under which he attained enlightenment was planted in Anuradhapura, the previous capital of Ceylon, by Thera Mahinda's sister, Theri Sangamita, in 247 BC. Today it is believed to be the oldest tree in the world. It used to be that there were no images representing the Buddha. The earliest evidence of Buddha's image in Ceylon dates back to the time of King Devanampiyatissa, who erected a beautiful statue made of stone in the Thuparama. If it is true that this was really the first statue of the Buddha, then it would be the oldest one. Every temple in Sri Lanka has an image of Buddha in a vihara, or monastery. Ceylon architects have developed 5 main seated and standing statues of the Buddha, the most characteristic of Ceylon being the Samadhi pose, where the Buddha is depicted as seated in meditation with one hand rest on the upturned feet and the other hand rest on its palm. There is a statue of the Buddha in Anuradhapura in the Samadhi posture. Image worship does not take place at the temple only, as many Buddhists have their own shrines in their homes. There are aspects of worship that are universal to all Buddhists. First, all acts of worship begin with the opening of paying homage to the Buddha. Once the person has become a Buddhist, they must recognize the 3 refuges of Buddhism, which are so central to the religion. They are the Buddha himself, the Dhamma, or Buddhist law, and the Sangha, the community of monks. These refuges are dependent upon one another. They are inseparable. There are also the 5 precepts that all Buddhists observe daily: abstaining from destroying lives, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and intoxication from liquor. Other more disciplinary precepts may be followed by laymen on Poya days or by bhikkhus all the time. However, the Sangha observes these 10 precepts all the time. Devotees may also make offerings to Buddha, such as flowers, lights, food, and drink. Afterward, they make a wish that they would like to come true. On top of these, there are other prayers and recitations that a devotee may perform, such as asking for forgiveness for having committed a sin, making offerings to the dead, gods, and others. Devotees may also perform a meritorious deed and thus in turn aspire that they will be saved from being born in hell as a preta or a ghost, or being born in an unknown realm. Meditation is also a big part of Buddhism, and great emphasis is put on it for placating one's mind and to know the right understanding of the Dhamma. Indeed, it has been said that Buddhism without meditation is like a well without water. Sermons given by members of the Sangha are another aspect of worship in Buddhism. At the sermons, there is preaching of the Dhamma, or Buddhist law, that by even just listening to, one can acquire merit from. Sermons focus on the central teachings of the Buddha, but at the same time, they are not just solely for preaching, as they are based on the Jataka stories, the stories of the birth of the Buddha, so they are light-hearted in nature. Finally, there is the Buddha Puja service, which can be either individual or done with others. Worship can also be done individually or with other people. In regard to specific ceremonies central to Buddhism in Sri Lanka, there is one that comes to mind, and that is the period ceremony, which is regarded with great significance. It is performed for safety and protection from disease, evil influence of the planets, and evil spirits. It is believed to be the only way to ward off evil that is either real or superstitious in nature. Piri can also be used in other ceremonies such as moving into a house, getting a new car, or getting a new job. These ceremonies are usually an hour or a little longer, and a bhikkhu will come into a person's home in order to perform the ceremony. This ceremony was sanctioned by the Buddha. It is the greatest ceremony of the Sinhalese people in regard to home and outside life, performed at every household function, religious festival, and so on. To the layman of Burma and Sri Lanka, the Pirita Pota is most widely known of the Buddhist texts, an equivalent to the Bible. The length and elaborateness of ceremony depends on the occasion. For all the ceremonies, though, verses are chanted in Pali from the Pirita Pota, also known as the Book of Paritas. Also, all Pirita ceremonies have the 3 gems present, the Dhamma via the Pirita Pota, Sangha via the monks present, and the Buddha via a relic casket representing him as if he were physically present. The Buddha said that the Paritas were assertions of truth, and therefore allowed this ceremony, especially the Khanda Parita, Atana-tiya Sutta, and the Metta Suttas, to be read. The Ratana Sutta, for example, helps ward off evil by making listeners focus on the power invested in the 3 gems. It is said that the vibrating sound waves produced by the sonorous and mellifluous chanting adds to the effect of the truths enunciated. In Sri Lanka, there are 16 places considered to be holy. However, there are 4 places in India which are considered to be the most holy above all other places in Buddhism. These are Lumbini, where the Buddha was born, Buddha Gaya, where the Buddha attained enlightenment under a Bodhi tree, and the holiest of all places, Sarnath, where the Buddha preached his first sermon. Lastly, there is Kusinara, where the Buddha passed away when he was 80 years old. Of the 16 holy places in Sri Lanka, only a few are mentioned here. The Mahayanga in the Yuva province is thought to be the first place that the Buddha visited when he came to Sri Lanka. The Mahabodhi tree in Anuradhapura and the Tisamarahara, where King Kakavana Tissa built a shrine encasing the Buddha's frontal bone, are also places of special importance. Another pilgrimage of major importance that the Buddhists make is to the mountain Sripada, or Adam's Peak. Devotees come here because it is believed that when the Buddha came to Ceylon, he left an impression of his foot on Adam's Peak. His right foot landed in Siam, which is now known as Thailand. At Adam's Peak, there are steps leading up to an enclosure that marks off the spot of the foot imprint, which is 5 feet 7 inches long and 2 feet 7 inches wide. This pilgrimage usually takes place in April. It is a very strenuous and long journey up the mountain. Pilgrims usually go at night, so they can reach Adam's Peak before dawn in order to see the sunrise and then perform their religious duties. The pilgrims face the east, watching the sunrise, and then give out cries of devotion. At this enclosure,